The station was bigger than anything Tae-Won had ever seen. Windows stretched across the walls, showing stars and ships moving in the darkness of space. He stood in the arrival hall, holding his bag tight against his chest. Other humans walked past him, talking in quiet voices. Everyone looked nervous. Tae-Won was nervous too. He was 32 years old and had spent the last 10 years learning alien languages. Now he was here. At Crossroads 7, the biggest meeting place in the galaxy, the Galactic Council had invited humans to join them. It was the most important moment in human history. A voice spoke from the speakers above. It was calm and had no emotion in it. All diplomatic staff report to Conference Hall 7. Tae-Won followed the signs through long white hallways. The station was clean and cold. Everything looked the same. There were no pictures on the walls, no colors, nothing that felt warm or alive. He passed other aliens in the halls. Some were tall with gray skin. Others had too many arms. One looked like it was made of crystal. None of them looked at him. Conference Hall 7 was a large round room with a table in the center. About 20 beings sat around it. Tae-Won found his name on a small screen and sat down. The chair was too hard and too cold. Welcome. The voice came from a tall alien at the head of the table. It had dark blue skin and 4 eyes. I am Council Speaker Varth. We begin integration protocols today. Humans will be paired with research partners. You will work together to help us understand your species. Tae-Won felt his stomach twist. They talked about humans like they were animals in a zoo. He wanted to say something, but he stayed quiet. He was here to build bridges, not burn them. Tae-Won Kim. Speaker Varth looked at him. You will work with xenolinguist Nira. A figure stood up from across the table. She was humanoid, which meant she looked almost human. She had pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly. Her eyes were silver, with no pupils. Patterns of light moved under her skin, like circuits in a computer. Her hair was long and white, pulled back tight. She wore a gray uniform with symbols on it. She walked around the table and stopped in front of him. She did not smile. She did not extend her hand. Xenolinguist Nira, 7th caste of the Lyrae Collective. Neural pattern 447B. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a book. I have been assigned to study human communication patterns. You will provide samples of human language and cultural data. Tae-Won stood up. He was taller than her by a few inches. He smiled and held out his hand. Hi. I'm Tae-Won. Just Tae-Won is fine. Nira stared at his hand. The lights under her skin flickered. That is an informal greeting gesture. Physical contact is not necessary for communication. It's not necessary, Tae-Won said, keeping his hand out. But it's nice. Nice. She repeated the word like it was in a foreign language, which, he supposed, it was. That term has no precise meaning. Please be more specific. Tae-Won lowered his hand. It means pleasant, friendly. It's how we connect with people. Connect. The lights in her skin pulsed faster. Humans use physical touch to establish social bonds. This is noted in the files. Very well. She reached out and gripped his hand. Her skin was cool, not quite warm like human skin. She shook once, twice, then let go. Greeting ritual completed. Tae-Won laughed. He couldn't help it. She made it sound like a medical procedure. Nira's head tilted. You are making the laughter sound. What has caused this response? Nothing bad, Tae-Won said. It's just, you're very formal. Formal is correct. Informal communication leads to errors. She turned away. Follow me. We have been assigned a workspace. Their workspace was a small room with 2 desks, 2 chairs, and a large screen on the wall. Everything was white or gray. There were no windows. Nira sat down at one desk and activated a computer. We will begin with basic analysis. I need samples of human speech in various emotional states. Anger, fear, joy, sadness. You want me to just perform emotions? Tae-won sat down at the other desk. Tae-won, yes. Speak sentences while experiencing these states. I will record and analyze the tonal variations. Tae-won rubbed his face. That's not really how it works. I can't just feel angry on command. Why not? Nira looked at him with those silver eyes. Humans are known for excessive emotional responses. Your files indicate high emotional volatility. We're not volatile, Tae-won said, feeling a flash of irritation. We feel things. That's normal. For humans. Nira's fingers moved across her computer. The Lyrae evolved past such inefficiencies 800 years ago. We eliminated emotional interference through genetic refinement. Eliminated? Tae-won stared at her. You mean you don't feel anything? Tae, we process information without emotional bias. It is superior. That sounds lonely. Nira paused. Her fingers stopped moving. Lonely. Emotional state characterized by perception of isolation. The Lyrae do not experience this. We are always connected through our telepathic network. But do you feel connected? Tae-won asked. I do not understand the question. Connection is a function, not a feeling. She turned back to her screen. This conversation is inefficient. Please provide the speech samples. Mao, Tae-won sighed. This was going to be harder than he thought. They worked for hours. Nira asked him to read human texts aloud. Poetry. News articles. Shopping lists. She recorded everything and made notes about how his voice changed. She asked questions that made no sense. Why does your voice frequency lower when reading the poem about death? Because it's sad. The poem is about loss. Why does sadness require a lower frequency? I don't know. It just feels right. Feels right is not a logical answer. By the end of the day, Tae-won was exhausted. Nira looked the same as when they started. The lights under her skin pulsed in the same steady rhythm. We will continue tomorrow, she said. 0800 hours. Sure. Tae-won stood up and stretched. Hey, do you want to get dinner? The station has a cafeteria. I consume nutrition in my quarters. Social eating is unnecessary. Right. Tae-won picked up his bag. Well, good night, Nira. Good night is a cultural pleasantry expressing wishes for restful sleep. Acknowledged. She did not look up from her computer. Tae-won walked to the door, then paused. You know, for someone studying human communication, you're really bad at it. Nira's head lifted. For a moment, the lights in her skin flickered in a pattern he hadn't seen before. That is an accurate assessment. I do not understand humans. Your species is confusing. Maybe that's because you're trying to understand us up here. He tapped his head. Instead of here. He touched his chest, over his heart. Nira stared at him. She said nothing. Tae-won left, the door sliding shut behind him. He didn't know it yet. But that moment, that small gesture had planted something in Nira's mind. A question she couldn't answer with logic alone. In the quiet room, Nira sat in silence. Her fingers touched her chest, where Tae-won had pointed. She felt her heart beating. It was just a muscle pumping blood. That's all it was. So why did his words make something in that space feel different? 3 weeks passed. Tae-won learned that Nira arrived exactly at 0800 every morning. She never came early. She never came late. She sat at her desk, activated her computer, and began work without saying hello. But small things were changing. On the 5th day, Tae-won brought 2 cups of tea to their workroom. He put one on Nira's desk. She stared at it for a full minute. Why did you bring this? She asked. Because we've been working for hours. I thought you might be thirsty. I did not request liquid refreshment. I know. I just thought it would be nice. There was that word again. Nice. Nira looked at the tea, then at Tae-won. The lights under her skin pulsed in a new pattern, faster than usual. She picked up the cup and drank. The temperature is acceptable, she said. Thank you. It was the first time she had said thank you. Their work continued. The Galactic Council wanted to understand everything about humans. They gave Tae-won and Nira hundreds of human documents to translate and explain. History books, scientific papers, novels, songs, but the council kept finding things they called anomalies. These were things that made no sense to them. Why do humans create art? A Velther counselor asked during a meeting. The Velther were tall, gray aliens who valued logic above everything. It serves no survival function. Art is how we express ourselves, Tae-won explained. It's how we share what we feel. But why waste resources on feeling? The counselor pressed. Why not simply exist? Why not simply exist? Tae-won had no answer that would satisfy them. He looked at the other aliens around the table. None of them understood. They thought humans were strange and inefficient. Back in their workroom, Nira pulled up a new file. The council has requested analysis of human romantic literature. They do not understand the concept of love. Love? Tae-won leaned back in his chair. That's a big topic. Love is defined as strong affection or attraction. But human literature uses many terms. Darling, sweetheart, beloved, my love. She read the words with no emotion. These terms all mean the same thing. Why do humans need so many words for one concept? They don't mean exactly the same thing, Tae-won said. They have different flavors, different feelings. Feelings are imprecise. This is inefficient. Maybe. But they're real. Tae-won pulled up a file on his screen. Look at this. It's a letter a human soldier wrote to his wife during a war. 200 years ago. Nira read the letter. It was short. The soldier told his wife he loved her. He told her he thought about her every day. He told her that if he died, she should remember the good times. He told her she was his reason for fighting. He died 3 days after writing this, Tae-won said quietly. But she kept this letter for 60 years. When she died, she was buried with it. Nira stared at the screen. Why would she keep a piece of paper for 60 years? Why not simply store the data? Because it was more than data. It was the last piece of him she had. His handwriting, the way he folded the paper. Maybe it still smelled like him. Tae-won's voice was soft. That's what love is, Nira. It's not just a word. It's wanting to keep someone close, even when they're gone. The lights under Nira's skin flickered rapidly. The Lyrae do not have such concepts. When a Lyrae dies, their neural pattern is uploaded to the collective. They are not gone. They are stored. But can you talk to them? Can you feel them? We access their memories. That is sufficient. Is it? Tae-won looked at her. Is it really enough? Nira did not answer. She returned to her work, but her movements were slower, distracted. More days passed. Tae-won noticed that Nira was changing in small ways. She started arriving 5 minutes early. She started saying good morning. She started asking questions that weren't in her reports. Why do humans smile when they are nervous? She asked one day. To hide fear. To seem friendly even when we're scared. That is deceptive. Maybe, but it's also kind. We smile to make others comfortable. Kind. Nira repeated the word. She did that often now. Repeating human words like she was tasting them. The Lyrae do not have kindness. We have efficiency. That sounds lonely, Tae-won said. He had said it before, on the first day. This time, Nira's response was different. I am beginning to understand that word. Lonely. Lonely. One night, they were working late. A diplomatic crisis had erupted. Human delegates had used what the Cortex aliens called aggressive emotional language during a negotiation. The Cortex were deeply offended. They were threatening to block Earth's entry into the Galactic Council. Tae-won and Nira had to fix it. They had to find a way to translate human emotion into something the other species would understand. They worked for 16 hours straight. Tae-won's eyes burned. His back hurt. He drank cup after cup of coffee. Nira showed no signs of fatigue. The Lyrae needed less sleep than humans. But then Tae-won noticed something. The lights under Nira's skin were dimmer than usual. Her movements were slower. She made small errors in her calculations. Something she never did. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am functional." "That's not what I asked." Nira paused. Her fingers hovered over her keyboard. "I am experiencing irregularities. My sleep cycle has been disrupted. My focus wavers. I do not understand why. You're tired and stressed. The Lyrae do not experience stress. That is a human emotional state." "Are you sure about that?" Nira looked down at her hands. The lights in her skin pulsed in an uneven rhythm. "I do not feel correct. When you are absent from this room, I find myself distracted. I calculate when you will return. When you are present, my neural patterns stabilize." This makes no logical sense. Taewon's heart did something strange in his chest. He knew what she was describing. He knew because he felt it too. But he said nothing. He couldn't say it. Not yet. They finished their work at 0300 hours. The station was quiet. Most beings were asleep. "We should rest," Taewon said. "We have the big meeting in 6 hours. I will continue working. Nira, you need to sleep. I am Lyrae. I require only 4 hours of rest." "But you haven't rested in 2 days." She looked at him. Her silver eyes seemed brighter in the dim light. "I do not wish to leave this room. When I am in my quarters, I feel." She stopped. "Feel what?" "The word you used. Lonely." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I feel lonely when you are not there." "Why do I feel this?" "The Lyrae are always connected. I should not be able to feel alone." Taewon stood up and walked to her desk. He sat on the edge of it, close to her. "Because you're starting to feel things, Nira. Real things. Not just data and logic. That should not be possible. My people eliminated such weaknesses. What if it's not a weakness?" Taewon said softly. "What if it's something good?" Nira looked up at him. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. The lights under her skin moved in patterns he had never seen before. They looked almost like uncertainty, like fear, like hope. "I do not know how to process this," she whispered. "That's okay," Taewon said. "Neither do I." The next night was worse. The diplomatic crisis was growing. The Cortax had given humanity an ultimatum. Either humans learned to control their emotions, or Earth would be excluded from the Galactic Council forever. Taewon felt the weight of it pressing down on him. His species' future depended on his work. On their work, he and Nira were trying to create something impossible. A universal translation matrix that could convert human emotion into language the other species would understand. But how could you translate a feeling? How could you make someone understand love if they had never felt it? They worked all day. They worked through dinner. The station's lights dimmed to simulate night, but they kept working. Taewon made his 6th cup of coffee. His hands shook as he stirred it. He had barely slept in 3 days. His eyes felt like sandpaper. But he couldn't stop. Too much was at stake. "This is impossible," he said, staring at the screen. "How can we explain something they've never experienced? It's like explaining color to someone who's been blind their whole life." Nira sat at her desk, surrounded by holographic displays. Data streamed across the screens. Her lights were dim. She had been working just as hard as he had. "We must find a way," she said. Her voice sounded tired. Actually tired. 3 weeks ago, she never would have sounded like that. "If we fail, your species will be isolated." "I know." Taewon rubbed his face. I don't know if I can do this." "You can." Nira looked at him. "You are capable. I have observed this. Thanks." He smiled at her, a small, exhausted smile. "When did you start believing in me?" "I do not believe. I calculate probability." But the way she said it was softer than before. Almost gentle. They kept working. Hours blurred together. Taewon's coffee went cold. He didn't notice. He was reading through human texts, looking for patterns, looking for something that would help them bridge the gap between species. At some point, he noticed Nira had stopped working. She was sitting very still, staring at her hands. The lights under her skin were flickering in an irregular pattern. "Nira? What's wrong?" "I am experiencing errors," she said quietly. "My neural patterns are unstable. I have reported them to the medical center, but they tell me nothing is physically wrong." "What kind of errors?" "My chest feels tight. My temperature fluctuates. When you speak, my heart rate increases. When you leave the room, I feel." She stopped. "I feel like something is missing. These symptoms have no logical cause." Taewon's breath caught. He knew what she was describing. He had felt it himself, but he didn't know how to tell her. How could he explain that she was feeling something her people had eliminated centuries ago? "Nira," he said carefully, "I think you're feeling emotions. Real ones. That is impossible. The Lire do not feel. Maybe you're different. Maybe being around humans has changed you." "I do not want to be different." Her voice cracked. Actually cracked. "I do not know how to be different. I do not have the words." Taewon stood up and walked to her. He knelt beside her chair, so they were at eye level. "Then, I'll teach you the words. That's what I'm here for. Right?" She looked at him. Her silver eyes were wet. Were those tears? Could the Lyrae cry? "I am afraid," she whispered. "Is that the word? Afraid?" "Yes, that's the word. I do not like it. No one does." Taewon reached out slowly and took her hand. Her cool fingers wrapped around his. "But it's okay to be afraid. It means you care about something." Taewon. Taewon reached a. Taewon reached out something. Taewon reached out slowly. Taewon reached out slowly. Taewon reached out slowly. Taewon reached out something. They stayed like that for a moment. Then Nira pulled her hand away and turned back to her work. "We must continue. Time is running out." They worked for another hour, then another. The station's clock showed 0300. Taewon could barely keep his eyes open. He stood up to make more coffee, his movements slow and clumsy. At the small coffee maker in the corner, he measured out the grounds. His hands were shaking worse now. He was so tired, so stressed. The whole weight of humanity's future was on his shoulders. And he was just one man. One tired, scared man. Behind him, Nira was still working. Even exhausted, even confused, she kept going. She was trying so hard to help his species. Why? The Lyrae had nothing to gain from this, but she worked anyway. Taewon felt something warm in his chest. Something soft and aching and impossible to name in just one word. The coffee finished brewing. He poured it into his cup. Then he turned and saw Nira. She was hunched over her desk, her lights barely glowing. She looked so small, so tired, so alone. Without thinking, Taewon spoke. His voice was soft, warm, the way he talked to people he cared about. "It's late, love. You should rest." The word slipped out naturally. Love. In English, it was a common term. Something you called people you cared for. He said it to his sister, his mother, his close friends. It wasn't always romantic. Sometimes it was just affection, caring, warmth. But Nira didn't know that. She froze. Completely still. Her hands stopped moving. Her lights stopped pulsing. For 7 full seconds, she didn't even breathe. Then she turned to look at him. Her face was a mixture of confusion and something else. Something deeper. "What?" Her voice shook. "What did you call me?" Taewon's brain caught up with his mouth. He realized what he had said. "Oh, it's just a word. I didn't mean, say it again." It wasn't a request. It was barely a whisper. "The way you said it." Taewon set down his coffee. He looked at her. Really looked at her. At this alien woman who had spent 3 weeks trying to understand his species. Who brought him tea? Now. Without being asked. Who stayed late because she didn't want to feel alone? Who was changing, piece by piece, because of him? Love. he said softly. Something broke. Nira gasped. Her lights exploded into colors he had never seen. Bright gold, deep purple, colors that flashed and swirled under her skin like a storm. Her whole body trembled. She stood up, stumbling. What is happening to me? Nira, what did you do? She pressed her hands to her chest. Tears ran down her face. Why does it hurt? Why does it hurt and feel good at the same time? What is this? Tae-won crossed the room in 3 steps. He caught her before she fell. You're feeling, really feeling. Maybe for the first time in your life. Make it stop. She was crying now. Really crying. I do not have words for this. I do not have the words. I do, Tae-won said gently, holding her steady. I have lots of words. Tell me. She looked up at him, desperate. Please. I need to know what this is. Tae-won smiled. It was a sad smile. A knowing smile. It's a lot of things, Nira. It's affection. Caring. Connection. It's what happens when someone matters to you, when their happiness becomes your happiness, when their absence leaves a hole in your day. That is what I feel, she whispered. When you are gone, there is a hole. When you are here, I feel. She stopped, searching for the word. Complete? Tae-won offered. Yes, complete. Why? Why do I feel this? He knew the answer. He had known for days, maybe weeks, but saying it out loud would change everything. It would cross a line they couldn't uncross, but looking at her face, at the wonder and fear and desperate need for understanding, he couldn't lie. Because you care about me, Nira, and I think I care about you too. Her lights pulsed so bright he had to look away. And in that small room, at 3 a.m, everything changed. The morning came too quickly. Tae-won woke up on the floor of their workroom. He had fallen asleep there, too exhausted to make it back to his quarters. Nira sat at her desk, exactly where she had been. But she wasn't working. She was just sitting, staring at her hands. Her lights moved under her skin in patterns that looked almost like music. Slow and beautiful and sad. Did you sleep? Tae-won asked, sitting up. His back hurt. No. I could not. She didn't look at him. Too many thoughts. Too many feelings. I do not know how humans manage this. It is overwhelming. You get used to it. I do not want to get used to it. I want. She stopped. I do not know what I want. That frightens me most of all. Before Tae-won could respond, the door slid open. 3 Lyrae entered. They wore the same gray uniforms as Nira, but with different symbols. Higher rank, Xenolinguist Nira, one of them said. You are summoned before the Collective Council. Immediately. 1. Nira stood up slowly. The colors in her skin faded to pale blue. For what purpose? For what purpose? Your neural patterns have been flagged. You are experiencing unauthorized emotional responses. This requires immediate correction. Tae-won jumped to his feet. Correction? What does that mean? The Lyrae didn't even look at him. This is not a human concern. Like hell it isn't. Tae-won stepped between them and Nira. She hasn't done anything wrong. She is malfunctioning. We will repair her. She's not a machine. Tae-won. Nira's voice was quiet. She touched his shoulder. It is all right. I will go. No, Nira, don't. I must. She looked at him, and he saw fear in her eyes. Real, human fear. This is Lyrae law. I cannot refuse. They took her away. Tae-won tried to follow, but station security stopped him. He spent the next 3 hours trying to find out where they had taken her. No one would tell him anything. Finally, Commander Hyorin Choi found him. She was the captain of the human diplomatic vessel. Tall, stern, with gray hair pulled back tight. She usually had no patience for emotional displays, but today, she looked worried. They're holding a hearing, she told Tae-won. The Lyrae Collective is deciding what to do with Nira. What are the options? Hyorin's jaw tightened. Neural recalibration. They'll erase her emotional capacity. She'll go back to how she was before. That's not fixing her. That's killing who she's become. I know. That's why you need to fight for her. Me? How? The Galactic Council has agreed to hear testimony. You're our expert on human emotion. Make them understand that what's happening to Nira isn't a disease. It's evolution. The hearing chamber was huge. Hundreds of beings filled the seats. At the center sat 3 Lyrae in white robes. The High Council. Nira stood before them, small and alone. When Taewon entered, her head turned. Their eyes met. Her lights pulsed brighter for just a moment. Then she looked away. This hearing will determine the fate of xenolinguist Nira, the center counselor announced. She has been infected with emotional instability. Standard protocol requires immediate neural recalibration. Infected? Taewon's voice rang out across the chamber. She's not sick. You are out of order, human. No, you are. Taewon walked forward. Hyorin had gotten him permission to speak. You're treating evolution like it's a disease. Evolution? The counselor's voice dripped with disdain. Emotional response is not evolution. It is regression. 800 years ago, the Lyrae eliminated such weaknesses. We became stronger, more efficient. We do not regress. We do not regress. Is that what you think emotions are? Weakness? Taewon pulled up his datapad. Let me show you something. These are human historical records. Wars, disasters, extinctions, events. Humans have survived 6 near-extinction events in our history. Do you know why we survived when other species didn't? Superior technology, a Velther counselor said. No. We had the worst technology. We survived because we cared. Because we loved each other enough to fight. To sacrifice. To keep going when logic said we should quit. Taewon looked around the chamber. Emotions aren't weakness. They're the reason we're still here. That is your perspective, the Lyrae counselor said. But this is not about humans. This is about one of our own who has malfunctioned. Let her speak. Taewon pointed at Nira. Let her decide for herself. Taewon, she cannot decide. Her judgment is compromised by emotional contamination. That's not fair. Enough. Nira's voice cut through the chamber. She stepped forward. I will speak. The chamber fell silent. Nira walked to the center. She stood tall, her lights pulsing in steady rhythm. The council is correct, she said. I am compromised. My neural patterns are unstable. I experience fear, confusion, pain. She paused. But I also experience wonder, joy, connection. I have learned words I never knew existed. I have felt things I did not know I was capable of feeling. These feelings serve no purpose, the counselor said. Do they not? Nira's lights flared brighter. For 800 years, the Lyrae have existed in perfect efficiency. We have no war, no crime, no chaos. But we also have no art, no music, no dreams of something better. We exist. But do we live? Murmurs ran through the chamber. Several other Lyrae began displaying colors in their skin. Unusual colors. The conditioning was spreading. I do not wish to be recalibrated, Nira said firmly. I choose to remain as I am. You cannot choose. You are not thinking clearly. I am thinking more clearly than I ever have. Nira turned to look at Taewon. I was assigned to study human communication. I have learned their greatest lesson. Being empty is not the same as being at peace. And I want to feel alive. The chamber erupted. Lyrae counselors argued with each other. Other species watched in fascination. This had never happened before. A Lyrae choosing emotion over efficiency. Choosing change. Commander Hyorin leaned close to Taewon. Whatever happens next, you started something. The The galaxy won't be the same. The High Council conferred for what felt like hours. Finally, the Center Counselor spoke. The Council finds that xenolinguist Nira is indeed compromised. However, forcing recalibration may cause more harm than benefit. Too many others are showing similar patterns. If we force one, they may resist. We cannot risk open rebellion. Tae-Won's heart soared. They were letting her go. Therefore, the counselor continued, Nira will be exiled from the Lyrae Collective. She may never return to our worlds. She will be cut off from the neural network. She will be alone. Nira's lights dimmed. Being cut off from the network meant losing her connection to every other Lyrae. It meant true isolation. But she didn't hesitate. I accept. After the hearing, Tae-Won found her in an observation deck. She stood at the window, watching stars drift by. Her lights were dim. Are you okay? He asked. I do not know. I have never been truly alone before. The network was always there, in the back of my mind. Now there is only silence. She looked at him. Is this what humans feel all the time? This aloneness? Sometimes, but we're never really alone. We have each other. Do I have you? The question was so vulnerable it hurt. Tae-Won took her hand. Yes. You have me. Her lights brightened, and for the first time since the hearing, she smiled. 6 months had passed since the hearing. Crossroads 7 looked different now. The white walls had paintings on them. Music played in the corridors. Small changes, but important ones. Humanity was leaving its mark on the galaxy, and the galaxy was changing because of it. Tae-Won stood in the new Human Cultural Center, preparing for a presentation. Behind him, Nira was reviewing his notes. She did that now, helping him with his work. They were partners in every sense of the word. You are nervous, she observed. The lights under her skin pulsed in a gentle pattern. She had learned to control them over the months. Now they moved like music, reflecting her emotions without overwhelming her. A little, Tae-Won admitted. This is important. You will do well. You always do. He smiled at her. She smiled back. It had taken her 3 months to learn how to smile. She practiced in the mirror, studying how humans moved their faces. Now her smiles were natural, warm, real. The presentation hall filled with beings from across the galaxy. Velthir, Cortax, even a few Lyrae. The awakened, they called themselves now. Lyrae, who had chosen emotion over efficiency. There were 63 of them scattered across the galaxy. Exiles, all of them, but free. Commander Hyorin took the stage first. 6 months ago, humanity nearly lost its chance to join the Galactic Council. We were too emotional, too chaotic, too human. She paused. But something changed. Not us, you. She gestured to the audience. This summit started as a way to integrate humanity into your systems. Instead, you learned something from us. That emotion isn't weakness, it's strength. It's what makes life worth living. Tae-Won stepped up next. His heart pounded, but Nira's presence behind him steadied him. Today, I want to talk about language. Specifically, about how what we call things shapes how we think about them. He pulled up a display. In Velthir, there is no word for love. In Cortax, there is no word for joy. In Lyrae, there was no word for wonder. You didn't have these words because you thought you didn't need these feelings. But we've learned something over these past months. Feelings aren't luxuries. They're necessities. They're what drive us to explore, to create, to connect. Without them, we're just going through the motions, existing, but not truly living. A Velthir in the front row raised a hand. But emotions lead to conflict, to war, to pain. Yes, Tae-Won agreed. They do. But they also lead to peace, to art, to love. You can't have one without the other. That's what it means to be alive, to feel everything, good and bad, and choose to keep going anyway. He looked back at Nira. She nodded at him. Time for the announcement. That's why we're launching a new program, the Emotional Exchange Initiative. Any species that wants to learn about human emotion can send representatives. We'll teach them our language, our art, our music, everything we've learned about feeling. The room erupted in questions. Some were excited, others were skeptical, but they were listening. That was what mattered. After the presentation, Taewon and Nira escaped to their favorite spot. An observation deck on the eastern side of the station. It had windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. Stars filled the view like glitter on black velvet. They sat on the floor, backs against the wall, shoulders touching. It was their ritual now. After long days, they came here to decompress. Do you think it will work? Nira asked. The program? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Taewon shrugged. But we have to try. Try. Such a human word. My people would calculate probability and proceed only if success was guaranteed. And miss all the interesting failures? Taewon grinned. That's the human way. We try things that might not work. We hope for the best. We fail a lot. But sometimes we succeed in ways we never imagined. Nira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I spoke to my mother yesterday. Taewon sat up straighter. You did? I thought you were cut off from the network? I am. But she sent a message through official channels. She said, Nira's voice caught. She said she was proud of me. She said I was brave. You are brave. She also said something else. She said 12 others from my home colony have petitioned to join the Awakened. They want to feel what I feel. They want to choose. That's amazing, Nira. It is also terrifying. What if I led them wrong? What if they choose emotion and regret it? Taewon took her hand. Even after 6 months, he still marveled at how natural it felt. Then they'll deal with regret. That's an emotion too. Not a pleasant one, but it's part of the package. You can't pick and choose which feelings to have. I am learning that. She squeezed his hand. Some days are harder than others. Yesterday, I experienced what you call a bad day. Nothing went right. I felt frustrated and tired and... She searched for the word. Cranky. Taewon laughed. Welcome to being human. I do not know if I want to be human. I want to be me. Nira. Not Lyrae. Not human. Just me. Then be you. That's all any of us can do. They sat in comfortable silence, watching a ship drift past the station. Its lights blinked in the darkness, going somewhere, coming from somewhere else, always moving. Taewon, Nira said softly. Can I ask you something? Always. That night, when you called me love, did you mean it? Or was it just a casual phrase? Taewon had known this question would come eventually. He had been dreading it and hoping for it in equal measure. Both. And neither. It started as casual. Just a word. But somewhere along the way, it became true. I don't know when exactly. Maybe when you started bringing me tea. Maybe when you smiled for the first time. Maybe it was always true, and I just didn't realize it. So you do love me? In the human way? Yes. I do. The words were easier than he expected. Do you love me? Nira turned to look at him. Her lights pulsed in waves of gold and soft purple. I did not know what love meant 6 months ago. I thought it was just a word. But now I understand. Love is waking up and thinking of you first. Love is feeling empty when you are gone, and complete when you return. Love is wanting your happiness more than my own efficiency. She touched his face, her cool fingers gentle. So yes, I love you. Very much. They kissed. It was not their first kiss. That had been 3 months ago. Awkward and uncertain. This kiss was different. It was sure. It was real. It was theirs. When they pulled apart, Nira rested her head on his shoulder. What happens now? She asked. Now? We keep going. We teach others. We learn more ourselves. We figure it out as we go. That is a very uncertain plan. That's the beauty of it. Tae-won wrapped his arm around her. We don't know what happens next. That's what makes it an adventure. Below them, Earth rose into view. The blue planet slowly turned, showing continents and oceans. Humanity's home. The species that felt too much, and loved too fiercely, and refused to give up. I would like to visit Earth someday, Nira said. I want to see where you come from. I want to understand humans better. We'll go. I'll show you everything. The mountains, the oceans, my hometown, my family. He paused. They're going to love you. How do you know? Because I love you. And my family trusts my judgment. Most of the time. Nira laughed. Her laugh was still a bit uncertain, a bit strange. But it was hers. She had created it herself, learning how to make the sound that expressed joy. It was beautiful. They sat together as the station rotated, bringing new stars into view. Somewhere out there, other species were watching humanity. Some with suspicion. Some with curiosity. Some with hope. The galaxy was changing. Slowly. Gradually. One feeling at a time. And it all started with one word. Spoken in a tired voice at 3 a.m. Love. Such a simple word. Such a powerful truth. Tae-won had given Nira that word. And in return, she had given him something just as valuable. She had proven that change was possible. That even those who had evolved past emotion could find their way back to it. That feeling was not a weakness to overcome, but a strength to embrace. Tae-won? Nira's voice was soft. Thank you. For everything. You don't have to thank me. I do. You gave me the word. And the feeling. And the courage to choose it. She lifted her head and looked at him. I was empty before. Going through the motions. Now I am alive. Really. Truly alive. And it is because of you. Tae-won's chest felt tight. The good kind of tight. The kind that came from feeling too much in the best possible way. We saved each other, I think. You taught me that humanity's emotions matter. That they're worth defending. Worth sharing. Then we are even. Partners. Yes, partners, she smiled. I like that word too. They stayed there until the station's artificial morning, watching the stars together. Two beings from different worlds, learning to love in the space between them. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, others were learning too. Learning that efficiency wasn't everything. That logic had its limits. That feeling, as messy and complicated as it was what made life worth living. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to write. Together,